When it comes to heated hoses for RVing, there are a ton of options that are out there. And so I want to share with you what we have found going through and testing these out. Which ones have failed and did not work, and which ones were successful and a viable option. So today we're going to give you 4 options for RVing in the cold weather when it's freezing outside. I think this should be helpful so you don't waste money like we did on hoses that don't work. So now let's get right into our first one, because this one has done really well for us. I'm going to start with the most expensive and work our way to the best budget options that are out there. And so this one we bought about 3 years ago. So we're going on our 3rd year right now. And this one's called Pirit. I think that's how you say the name. It's like spirit without the S on there. So anyways, this one is all molded. So even just looking at the hose itself, it's hard to tell that it's even a heated hose in and of itself until you look at the ends and you see the molded ends, and then we have a pretty long power cord that's on here. Now this one comes in at $159. You can get them cheaper if you get them shorter, and you could also spend more if you wanted to get them longer. This is a 25-foot hose here. We're gonna look at 25-foot in all of them so we can compare the price across the board. Now let me give you the pros and cons with this hose. So the con is it's all molded together. This is all one unit. The heating wire is embedded on the inside here. It's in between the layers that are in there. So if you have an issue with the hose, the fitting, or the electric, this thing is toast. You don't have the ability to swap out any of those individual items. It's just all one item wrapped in together. The thing that I do like about it is this thing is rated at 200 PSI. So that came in really important because we went to a campground where we had a DIY solution to be able to have a heated hose, and they didn't accept that. So we had to get a commercial heated hose if we wanted to use fresh water at their park. We were doing work in the area and we had to stay there for an extended period of time, so we needed to have fresh water. One of the reasons that they sold this brand in particular is because it's rated at 200 PSI, and they had really high pressure inside of that park. So you didn't want to leave your pressure regulator out at the faucet, because then that would freeze and that would do you no good. So we had to put that inside the bay, and this could handle the 100+ PSI that was out there up to the pressure regulator that then protected the RV. So everything was done well, and this did the job, and you can see that it's holding up well. Now there's a lot of other ones that look very similar to this out there. I was reading some reviews on them, and the reviews didn't quite match the review that we would have on this one. We're 3 years going strong, no problem. I don't know if that would be for everybody. You just want to be able to test it out before you hit that freezing temperature. When you're getting around that 30, low 30s mark Fahrenheit, you can go out and you can feel the hose and you can see, is it warmer than the ambient temperature outside? That way you know that it's working. You see that the fittings aren't leaking, so then you know you have a hose that you can depend on through that cold. And they say that this is rated down to a negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is quite cold. I don't know that any of these hoses I would trust down to that temperature, but that is the rating on this one. And it does have an 18-month warranty, which is kind of nice, because if you go through a season and you use it for the winter and you don't use it till the next winter, you still have a warranty on it for the next winter. So you should have a guaranteed hose for at least 2 seasons. As we move over to number 2, all the links are going to be down in the description to everything that we talk about, to all the hoses and the DIY options that are out there. Now, number 2 is our Camco hose, and you can see the construction is considerably different. The other one was very streamlined and sleek looking, more like a normal hose. This one, you can see more of the elements, and it has a sheath on the outside. So this is only rated at 70 PSI for the hose, and is down to negative 20 is what they say the rating is at. Now, this one has failed on us, but it might have a redeeming quality. We're gonna take a look at that. But you can kind of see the construction that is in here. You can see that they use heat shrink on the end. You can see, like I said, this outer sheath. And then when we take some of that off, you can just see it's just a normal white hose on the inside here. And I think that's why the PSI isn't all that high. And that's the portion that failed. It didn't freeze, it didn't crack, it kind of more expanded, even though this has always been under a pressure regulator. So it's never had high pressure applied to it. One thing that I do like about this hose is at the ends, they give you this additional adapter, which you could get your own adapter and do this to other hoses. But they put the same end on both ends of the hose. So if you need to be able to plug this into the RV, because it doesn't have as long of a power cord on it than the other one did, you can put that at the RV side. Or if you need to flip it around and put it, because the pedestal is going to be close at the other end, you can do that as well. And then you just put this fitting adapter on whichever end you need to make the hose work inside of your RV system. Now, our use of the hose, we use this for an entire season and then a few other intermittent times in between there. So it lasted more than one complete season, but not much more than that, even though this is one that we've had around for a long time. This is one that we kept at family's house, and when we were in the area and we were there for the holidays and whatnot, we would use this hose because this is one of our shorter hoses, and it's nice because when you hook up a hose, it's better to have the proper length that you need. You don't want to have this coiled up on the ground for any of these hoses because it can kind of build up heat, and you could have a failure because you have the heated element wrapped up on top of itself and then it holds in the heat. You would rather have it all strung out. So we knew that this was the perfect length that we needed to go to the spigot, to the RV. Even though that $109 price was for a 25 footer, this one's much shorter. But with these different elements that you can see in there, we're gonna see if we can replace this hose, save the outer jacket, because this outer jacket has done well being exposed to the sun and the elements. It hasn't broke down, it's not brittle, it's fine. It doesn't provide a ton of insulation, but it definitely keeps that heating element close to the hose, which allows this to work. I did see one review that they said they were down to -8 Fahrenheit, and that's when this thing finally froze over. I know it's rated down to -20, but that's kind of what you could probably expect realistically with this. So side note, future Jared here, I fixed the hose, and I think this is gonna work out great. I just have electrical tape on the end here. I'll put heat shrink on there after I test it just to kind of clean it up a little bit more, but just between you and me, if I go to a park and I'm using this hose, this is a commercial hose. This is not a DIY hose. It's been a repaired commercial hose, so it works. Back to what I was saying. Now, number 3 is a full DIY solution, just getting your own hose. This one's at 150 PSI. It obviously can't take the cold temperature without us doing something to it. So then you get a heating cable to be able to put alongside this, and then you just insulate it so it keeps the heat cable close to it and protects it a little bit better from the cold, holds that warmth in. We've done this solution for years and been very satisfied with it. We've had hoses, heat cables, and insulation last for years and seasons on end that we didn't have any problems with. Now with this solution, you don't even have to get an extra hose. You can use the hose that you already have, but to keep the prices all uniform, for a 25-foot version of this, it'd be around $78. So you can get a hose like this, the FlexZilla, 150 PSI, that way your pressure regulator can be at your RV. You get the heat cable, you get the insulation to put around it, and you have a heated hose. Now, side note, this may not be allowed in all RV parks, so there's places that this might be your solution, but you'd have to end up getting another hose or come up with another solution. So that's something to take into account. The other thing is this doesn't travel as well as the other two hoses. This gets rather bulky, having the insulation, the heating wire, just everything kind of doesn't compact as well as the other heated hoses do and store as neatly inside of the RV. So something else to consider there as well. Now, all the stuff I have in my hands, the insulation I prefer is this that wraps around it, because then you could just put individual pieces of tape or something around there to make sure this doesn't come off. You can use this where you can wrap it around the hose and the heat cable, but this insulation, it really absorbs the water compared to this setup. It's a little bit cleaner in the long run. But you can do whatever option you needed, especially if this is being used at family's house or some other location where you don't have to really worry about the look of it. So it's real easy to assemble. You put the hose inside of the insulation, and then you can put that heat cable inside of there. If you'd like, you can already electric tape the heat cable onto the hose and then put the insulation on there. Either way, you just want to get it wrapped up. You can leave a little bit of the heat cable extended on both sides. That way you connect it to the faucet or any other connection that this might be up against, and then put a little more insulation on that. So it's a very viable solution that could take you down to, they say, -40 on that heat cable, but again, I don't know that it would go that low, but it gives you a very good viable option for being able to use a hose in the cold weather. It's really not that difficult to put together, but it does take a little bit of space and probably not the best looking out of all these three options that we've looked at so far. Now, the fourth option, I guess there's actually going to be a fifth option, but the fourth option is the cheapest by far, and it's just to use the freshwater tank on your RV. You can take a hose out there, fill up your freshwater tank, turn on the tank heaters. A lot of RVs nowadays will have tank heaters for cold weather camping and using your RV in cold weather situations. Turn that on, and it's going to keep the water in there from freezing. Then you need more water, just go out there and fill up the tank again. But make sure you drain your hose and put it away. If you don't drain your hose and put it away, the next time you go to use it, it might be frozen and you'll have no way of getting water into the RV. It's definitely a viable system, but the good thing is there's options no matter what you would want to pick. Do you want something that's repairable and usable, or do you want something streamlined and storable, or do you just want to put water inside of the RV? And so I guess the last thing that we could have on here is just drive south. You don't have to worry about this if you go to Florida. You get into Florida, you don't have to worry about your hose freezing to your RV. And if it does, then you need to drive just a little bit farther south. So anyways, I hope this video helps you out in some ways to find the options that work for you and how you would like to RV. So if you did like it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos about RVing, hit that subscribe button. And if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video. Take care.